Good morning and welcome to the third annual ACC NCR Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference. My name is Sharifa Balagoon. I am Chief Legal and Compliance Counsel at CQ Credit Union. Additionally, I co-chair the Programming Subcommittee of the ACC NCR DEI Committee. We have an amazing morning scheduled for you and are grateful that you all are here. But before we get started, we have a few housekeeping notes. Today's conference will be recorded and will be available at a later date. Comments today should not be publicized without permission, should not be construed as legal advice, and do not represent the positions of any company, firm, or chapter. Please direct your attention to a few features that will help you enjoy and participate in today's program. We want this conversation to be interactive, but it can be difficult to chime in or ask a question orally on video conference. Please place all questions in the chat box at the bottom of the screen. We will do our best to get to all of the questions. Today's program will be closed captioned. If you would like to see a running transcript of today's discussion, then please click the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and then select Enable for the live transcript. If you would like to turn off the running transcript at any time, you can click Live Transcript and then select Disable. Please be sure you are identified on the screen with your first and last name, and please add your company as well. We also suggest that you use the speaker view rather than the gallery view for today's conference. Our theme for today's conference is why DEI efforts are not yielding sufficient results and what you can do to move the needle at your organization. When brainstorming professionals we thought could address our theme, one name quickly rose to the top of the suggestions as an expert that could speak to this topic with candor and authenticity. We are thrilled to introduce our esteemed guest, Paula Edgar. Paula is CEO of PGE Consulting Group LLC, an organizational strategy firm that provides training and education solutions at the intersection of professional development and diversity, equity, and inclusion. As an attorney, Paula practiced employment and workplace discrimination law for the New York City Commission on Human Rights, and her professional experiences include several leadership roles focused on talent development and inclusion. Paula is a highly sought after speaker and facilitator, conducting live and virtual presentations for clients across industries. Paula develops customized programming to maximize the experience for attendees, ensuring they leave informed and inspired to have a lasting impact both individually and within their organizations. Paula's areas of diversity expertise include unconscious bias, inclusive leadership, and allyship. Her professional development skill set includes personal branding, relationship building, mentor-sponsor best practices, and business development. Paula encourages all participants to engage your hustle, her business tagline, mantra, and method to elevate their professional endeavors. Paula has written for and been featured in a wide array of publications, including the New York Times, Bloomberg Law, Essence Magazine, Shondaland, and Business Insider. Paula received the Ruth Whitehead Whaley Service Award from the Association of Black Women Attorneys. She has also been recognized by the Network Journal magazine as a 40 Under 40 Achievement Awardee, a Miss JD Woman of Inspiration, and as a rising star by A Better Chance. Paula, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Sharifa. Hello, everyone. Good morning from sunny Jamaica. I am excited to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for the invitation to have this very, very important conversation. So if any of you have seen me speak before, you know I don't like to talk at people. I like to talk with people. And so I plan to do that today. And I want us to be as interactive as possible. And I encourage you to ask questions. And so let's get started. I'm going to share my slides because I want to speak to adult learning, which means that you need to see and hear me at the same time. And so we're going to do that. In the meantime, though, it would be helpful for me just to engage. What did you do this morning? Coffee or tea? Put it in the chat. I want to see. And if you're like water, then I want to know what your trick is. So, all right. So while you're doing that, awesome. Okay. I'm a tea gal myself, and although I've been told that because I'm in Jamaica, I have to try coffee. So I'm going to do that. Oh, it's good to see some folks that I know in the chat. Awesome. All right. So we're going to be, I'm on the wrong side. We're going to be talking today. Here's this one. Can you see my name? Okay. All right. There you are. We're going to be talking about accountability today. So the conference theme is about why DEI is not moving, why the needle's not moving as much as it can. And I want to talk about my personal feeling about that and really what I've seen in the work that I've done, which is that folks are not incorporating this I, right? DEI needs your I, and that I is you in terms of accountability. So we're going to delve into that a little bit. And I want to hear your thoughts about this as I continue on. But first, Sharifa did a wonderful job of introducing me, but I like to show this picture and just tell you a little bit more about myself, just in case. My folks, the people who I interact with the most are people from the legal profession. I interact and engage with leaders for strategic and thoughtful, inclusive leadership. And that is really one of the keys to moving the needle, which we're going to get into. And all of these things are in my LinkedIn headline. And I hope that you will connect with me on LinkedIn if we're not already connected, as I think it's important for us to continue the conversation. This is not the end of our interaction with each other. We have to collaboratively get this right. So some housekeeping, you'll see that there's a QR code on the screen. At any point, you can point your phone to it. If you're on your phone, then I'm going to put something in the chat for you so you can just use that link. In order for you to engage with me. When you click on that, you'll see that it'll bring you to a website called menti.com, where we're going to do interactive. I'm going to ask you some questions, and also you can give me any comments or questions that you have in addition to the chat. I'm going to be using both things in order to hear from you and for you to hear from each other. Okay. At the beginning and also at the end of this, I want to make sure you remember my thesis for today is that you are the catalyst for change. Now, oftentimes when I interact with leaders and lawyers in general, they're always saying, well, they need to do something. And I want to encourage you to understand that you are the they that we're talking about. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment because I want to put in the chat, like I said, the link in case you did not scan the QR code. You can click that link and it'll bring you to the exact same space. And while you're doing that, once you get there, you'll know you're in the right place because you'll see today's date and my name on another site, the one I showed you originally. Let's talk about the landscape of what we're in. So we're in 2022, we're 2 years plus into a pandemic. Yes, deep breaths for all of us. In 2020, we experienced trauma collectively as a community, a global community, as well as a national community, and obviously individually and institutionally, because of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and a myriad of other things that were tragic that occurred, but then ended up being a catalyst. So many of you were thinking about DEI prior to that. But what I do know for sure, because my phone kept ringing, my emails were going off, is that people said, oh, we have to think about DEI now after having that experience. And what I want to remind you is that we are still in that experience, right? Every single day as we navigate the fact that our world as legal professionals continues to shift, we have, this, what do they call this, turnstile of talent that is going from place to place. We have people who are really understanding that due to the pandemic, they don't want to be in places that are not supporting them. DEI is not just around the diversity that we thought it was before. Oftentimes when we would say diversity, we would think about it as just race or gender or LGBTQ status, right? Some of the bigger things, but really DEI, I've always professed, is about just people, right? Because all of us are different and all of us need to be supported. And of course we can have goals, and we should, around increased diversity. And some of the work that's being done by ACC NCR is really, I think, fantastic and innovative. I was saying that before we got started, in that you are pushing everyone to really think about what their personal commitments should be and how they can navigate that within their institution. So I want to dive into that. In order for DEI to be effective, it has to be strategic and it has to be actionable. But the secret that no one wants to talk about is that DEI is hard. It's hard. It's not, if it was easy, right? I could be gallivanting off, right, on a boat someplace. It is hard. I am here in Jamaica to decompress from all of the things, right, in life that I and all of you have had to manage in the time that we've been, in these last 2 years, but just really in general, this is hard stuff. It is hard for us to invest in people and for them to leave. It is hard for us to understand that we want representation and not to see it. It is hard for us to see that people who say that they have commitment and maybe don't. All of that is traumatic and continues to make it challenging. So I want to talk about some of the things that I know that you're probably doing. Before that, I'm going to ask you to do a quick exercise. Hold on. I feel like a DJ sometimes when I'm doing this. Okay, so back to my slides. I'm going to go to what I know that you're doing, and I want to ask you a question about what you're doing. So as I was thinking about this keynote, I thought everybody who is sort of on the path is probably doing at least one of all of these things that you see on the screen, but definitely if you are at its baseline, you're doing all 5, right? So you've identified the issue, right? We need more diversity in our profession, right? You've identified it, and then you said it internally, and then you made statements about it, hopefully internally and externally. And then what do? You do what good lawyers do. You try to find out more information. We attend events, right? You come to events like this one where you can learn best practices. You can interact with people who are doing the same things that you're doing and trying to advance diversity within their institutions. And then you make sure that you're asking for data, right? You see my face is doing this Brooklyn thing where I'm like, are you asking for data? We're going to get into that in a little bit. Today's conference is fantastic because I'm going to talk to you and hopefully inspire you to engage. After that, you'll then be talking about both data and then also how to make sure DEI is in the DNA of your organization. Perfect follow up. And what I'm going to say is because there's a lot of talk, but the action piece is really where I want to get to. The reason why the needle is not moving is because the action piece, in my mind, is missing. So I would love for you to answer the question on the screen. I'm going to move the slide. You'll see the slide on the mentee has changed, and I'll put it in the chat again, the link. In 3 words or phrases, why do you think diversity and inclusion in your organization may be challenged and maybe it's not working the way that you want to? So take a moment and do this quick exercise. It's going to give you 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes for this, and I'll make sure that the internet is working today if things are coming in. So think about this. In 3 words or phrases, why hasn't the needle been moved significantly in your own organization? So not in the profession generally, but in your own organization. Why? So again, this is anonymous. Can't tell who you are, just how many responses I've got. And I've got 75 people on. That means that I should be getting some good, significant, okay, I see some stuff coming in, and I'm going to show you what comes in. It's going to populate a word cloud for you. And it is an important piece because sometimes if we're having conversations, we'll say the things, but this is a chance for you to tell me in the confessional of the ACC NCR, what do you think is happening in your organization? And I have a theory about what's going to show up because I have conversations about this all the time, but I'd love to see what actually does. And that'll help me to guide our conversation a little bit more. And I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are about what you see. So we've got about 45 minutes, seconds more for your responses. I've got 21 responses so far. And I'll just say that if I was a betting gal, and maybe I am, I see the word that I thought I was going to see. And we're going to talk about it. Keep on going. Make sure you hit submit. I have confirmed that the internet does indeed work here. All right. 20 seconds more. Got 35 responses. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen with you so you can start to see what you're all saying. Okay. Oh, and I see some people are putting things in the chat as well. So for the people who are in the chat who might have just joined, I'm going to give you this link again so that you can participate in what we're doing online. Maybe I'm going to do that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, there it is. Now take a look at this. Look at this word cloud that's populating. You see that word right in the middle, fair? I see that I hear that, I engage and interact with that pretty much every single day. Remember when I said this is not easy? It's also scary because when you're advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're also advancing, supporting, and encouraging change. And what I know for sure is that people don't like change, right? Because it makes us do things differently than we had done them before. Let's see what else we have. Inertia, denial, ignorance, resistance, time, focus, risk, my favorite. Risk and fear go together. Leadership, not sure where to start. Lack of accountability, see, exactly. Too big, inexperienced, people are moving too fast, uneducated, fear of making mistakes, fear of the unknown, collective executive buy-in, unconscious bias, absolutely white privilege. Coming out of the COVID budge, certainly, right? We have been in this inertia, which that word makes sense there too, given that we're still in this pandemic. Empathy, no support, uncertainty, other priorities, single focus diversity. So this is not too touchy-feely. Okay, see, now I want you to the screen has shifted and it says questions or comments. I want to hear what you thought about the actual word cloud that just came up. Did you expect fear to be the word that was going to be there? Did you, some of the things that you expect to see not show up? And that's going to be in statements, and I won't show them. So you can say whatever you want to say to me. I'll read them to you. This for me is such an important piece. I love to use anonymizing tools because when it comes to diversity, there is this fear there. The reason that I know for sure that the needle is not moving is because people are scared. And because the commitment that it takes to make change requires this momentum. And that often that momentum is lacking if we think that the responsibility is outside of us. If all of us are saying that it's our I, we are going to shift this. And that's why I encourage you. I'm saying, let's not be the choir. Let's go sing someplace else, not here, somewhere else. We take what we've learned today and do something else. Someone said they didn't expect fear. I can just tell you this. It is significant. Think about this. If the legal profession at its top is primarily white and male, and in order to shift that and want to have more diversity, that means that there's got to be, I'm giving them a gift basket of change every single day. And they're like, I don't want it, Paula. Nope, good try. No, thank you. Let me see what else you're saying. Okay, let's see. You said, not surprised. I didn't think about fear, but it makes sense. Not expecting fear. A lot of organizations place the burden on employees of color. Certainly. That's also a place of fear, right? If you engage and you put resources out that says, we're going to hire a DEI consultant, we're going to bring in somebody to be in charge of DEI, that's also a fear. Then are you going to give them power? Are you going to allow them to actually shift your culture? This is, yep, okay. So it's a visceral response. Okay, all right, so good. So we're aligned in the same place. So let's jump back into some more of the content. Thank you for taking part in that. And you can use that slide to tell me anything else that you'd love to tell me in terms of questions and answers. I'll check it periodically as I continue to go through my own slides. So I want to delve in a little bit more about the reasons that I knew it wasn't working and some of the things that you identified. Right? Identifying the issue, right? What is the underlying cause of the issue that diversity, equity, inclusion is not advancing in our profession and just generally? What is it? I mean, I know systemically, we are dealing with racism, sexism, and the impact on our society and how that trickles down into education, institutions, and access. Right? All of that means that it's going to be, the pipeline shrinks as we get into our profession. And then there's a lot of opportunity and options. And so to make yourself an employer of choice, to make yourself someplace, or to make your institution somewhere that people are going to say, I'm going to go, that is hard, particularly because people are looking often for representation, right? So then you have this 360 that happens where you're like, I want to see somebody in leadership. I need to get folks who are in the, within the pipeline. And there's this struggle in terms of systemic institutional engagement. I also see that people look at DEI as a separate siloed thing. It's not. Anytime you're doing strategic planning, any of those other things, DEI should not be like, oh yes, and DEI, right? We have to make the DEI agenda. No, DEI should be incorporated in everything. It's the lens, right? Like the glasses lens that we look at for all the things that we do, or else we're not doing it right. That's really where the inclusion is. So the stated desire for diversity, oh yes, of course. I'm going to say it, but then what are we going to do after that? Either the same thing. I looked at some of the data that came from the ACC NCR's reporting on what your members said. And there was a lot of, yes, we're doing this one thing, or we're doing these two things, and we continue to do those things. And I am telling you, because I'm going to get into a lot of I's in the next 10 minutes, that innovation is really where the shift comes from. Okay. You saw that there's fear, there's also lack of trust, right? You can say we care about diversity, we're committed. I love commitments, but commitments are not just in words, they require sustained strategic action. I talked about this. We're here, we want to go elsewhere and tell people. We want to leave here. Can I have homework assignments for you? I know you're excited, right? I'm a coach at my heart. That means that you're going to leave here and you're going to talk about what you've learned. That is your I for today, because it will change the game versus just internalizing what you're learning. All right, data. The last bullet here, take a deep breath before I put it up there. Data's scary. In the end, we're lawyers, yes, right? And if we ask for data, what are we going to do with it? Are we allowed to ask for the data? What if, my goodness, nails biting? I can tell you this, there's no I in data, but there is an I in risk, and we don't like it. So what are we going to do? Because in order to move the needle, we have to do some things differently. And I would love to encourage you to think about my I's. Again, I'm a big fan of alliteration. So I was saying to my husband, he's like, that's a lot of I's. Watch. Individuals, that's one I. This is what you can do. I investigate. It can't just be that you're saying okay, great, I want to be involved in diversity. I want diversity to be important. You have to investigate. What are you doing? As in-house attorneys, sometimes you are seen as, a friend, sometimes you're seen as a foe in terms of the enterprise-wide DEI initiatives. But it's important to know what's currently happening outside, meaning inside but outside, and then also within your legal department. And the challenge is you may have a legal department that's 3 people, or you can have 300 people, right, or 2,000 people, but still understanding if there's a commitment and then what it is enterprise-wide is important, so that you can align and hopefully then jump and do even more. There's nothing stopping you from doing more. But what data is currently being collected? What are we doing with that data? Just knowing what currently is happening can allow you to now think, how can I innovate? Interpret that. We have seen that we've committed to, having a greater pipeline. In that looking at the pipeline, we've noticed that the data that we're given about, applicants in our organization doesn't really show the diversity that we're looking for. Who is in charge of reviewing said data? Informing stakeholders on status. So oftentimes, unfortunately, you'll have stakeholders who will say, you are the person who is going to be in charge of DEI because you care about it. And unfortunately, particularly if you're a person of color, and often a woman, or even at that intersection, there's an increased burden that is placed on you that says, you've got to do even more, and then I am outsourcing that to you. No, you can inform stakeholders on status if you're in charge, but this has to be a priority for everyone, and they have to be incorporated into this. And in fact, I would love for leaders to state that this is important, to then show that it's important, to take on the learning, and to not just outsource these pieces. It has to be that we're all addressing our I. My favorite I here is innovate. You don't have to do what's already been done. Think about your own particular institution. Who are we? What are we trying to do? What has been done already? How are we holding people accountable to what we said that we were going to do? And then what can we do differently? A brainstorming session that literally says, what can we do? I would love to do that every 6 months. I know organizations who are doing this, particularly around not just recruiting, but the retention piece, right? Saying, we want to make sure as we're figuring out how to bring more folks in, that we're keeping the people we have here. So whether that's innovation by saying, okay, maybe folks are a little bit afraid of asking for data around equity, for example, pay. Yes, it's fear. Should you do it? Yes. Are people willing to do it? Not so much. Should they think about doing it? Absolutely. But there are other places that you can look for innovation in terms of data. So I have a client who wanted to do a mentoring program because they realized that people didn't know the trajectory internally within their organization, right? They knew that they were there, they knew that there was a GC, but what could they do? What was the opportunity for them to learn, to develop, et cetera? And so they decided their mentoring program was going to be folks who onboarded, right? There's two people who are in charge of onboarding, a commitment there. They also created they created SOPs, standard operating procedures, so that if the event there was any attrition, they would be able to provide that to somebody else if they left, right? So that's important. You want to make sure you concretize, I think I might have just made that up, what is going on so that it doesn't get lost with the individuals. Then they made sure that people had literally in your role, this is the opportunity for professional development. These are the people who've done this before. They even incorporated alumni into their mentoring. They've had panels that said that when I was there, I did this. It's important to make sure that people have an understanding of how and what. The place in which diversity and inclusion is challenged is when people don't have information. Equity means providing information. Inclusion means making people feel as if they belong by providing them the keys in order to be impactful and effective within your organization. So we could talk about this all day. I'm here to inspire. Hopefully it's working already. Integrate DEI on all fronts. I said this already. This lens has to be, I am doing this internally. I'm also talking to my external outside clients and other vendors and partners about what our commitment is and how they can help us to get to that place. Those things, like loving all the eyes, impact the workplace, improve the legal profession, and require additional and continued investment and insight. Okay, I wanna see what you're saying in the chat and see if there's any questions. Are you impressed at all of my eyes? I have some people in the chat saying, yes, okay, awesome. Let me see what you're saying on the Menti, if there's any other things I want to respond to, because I do want you to ask me questions. Okay, yes, someone says, innovation is important. It is so important, right? We can't continue to do the same things and think that we're going to have different outcomes. We're just not. We're not. But I will say this to you is that sometimes when people are saying they're doing the same things, they're actually not, because they're not holding people accountable in the things that they have actually said. So, right? If you're actually saying we're doing it and wanting to do it, but then not holding people accountable, then you're not actually doing it. We're lawyers. We're really good at influencing. That's another eye, right? And so I'm going to give you some homework. I'm going to give you some homework. So take a look at this. And I will share the slides, so don't be afraid. You don't have to write everything down. I'll give these to folks. Okay, we already know the pipeline of where DEI is impactful in the organization, right? That pipeline, it can't just be one of these. And that's why I really love that you have the DEI maturity model, the ACC. I mean, it's really a fantastic place to take a snapshot of where you are, okay? So I have another question for you that I'd like you to answer right now. So you'll see the Menti has changed. Have you reviewed the ACC DEI maturity model? So go ahead and answer that question. I want to know what you've done, and there's some questions on the screen, and then I will share with you, because we as lawyers ask for tools often, we ask for data often, but I'm encouraging you to use the data, right? Okay, and okay, let's see what you got here. I mean, what a wonderful collaboration of content from not just ACC, but ACC, the foundation. Shout out to Jen, hi. Look at this. You have a fantastic tool at your fingertips. I reviewed it and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I was involved in this. I will send my edits later. We're gonna continue to make this happen, but I love the fact that it is there as a tool. Essentially, and I'm sure it's gonna be talked about later on, but that you can look and say, this is where we are. And this is what we're doing, and how can we make goals and set goals to move to the next step, to see where we are in our DEI trajectory. It is powerful, made for in-house attorneys, right? That's the answer. You're going to talk about that later on. But take a look, glance at it. I'm not sure what that is. We're going to change those two. It's going to be yes, 100% the next time this question is asked, okay? All right. Just wanted to show you that. And I also noticed that there's not as many answers that I would like here. Again, it's anonymous. You can just tell me, it's fine. All right. That was helpful. Let's see. I know, okay, I've got 5 minutes. I know, I hate when this happens, but I'm gonna give you homework before I get off. So take a look here. Oops, I'm gonna ask questions and comments here. I'm gonna go to this other screen. I am like a DJ, hold on. All right, there it is. Now here's your homework. I would not be a good coach if I did not say this is what you're gonna do next. Why does this keep happening? Sorry. All right, now here it is. Did it work? Am I in the wrong screen? Okay, in the meantime, I'm just gonna keep talking. So I want you to do this. I want you to, one, take what you're doing today, what you've learned today. I hope you're taking vigorous notes. And the next thing you're gonna do is to say, this is where I attended and this is what I learned. Literally put it on the agenda of the next thing you're gonna do. You might be thinking to yourself, why, how? No, you have to do this. I went to this thing, I learned this, and I would like you to see this tool. I want you to take the DEI maturity model, and I want you to then say, all of us, whether we have 3 or 300 in our stakeholders meeting, to look at it and say, where do you think that we are as an organization? Don't talk about it before, ask where you think we are, and then use that as a catalyst for conversation. Because what I will tell you is that people will say different things. Oh, we're definitely all the way over there, when you know all that's been done is a statement. Right? So it's a good way to kind of measure and say, the rubber hits the road here. We're not where you think we are, and what we're saying does not equate what we're doing. And this can be a catalyst for us to do differently versus to continue on in the same place where we have been, which has not necessarily moved that needle, as we mentioned before. Okay. So yes. We want people to be, yes, I'm looking at some of the comments in terms of what's coming on. And I'm going to just close that for a minute because I do want to show you this one last slide before we leave. And now I'm inviting you to ask me questions via the chat while I close this out, or any place else. I want to make sure that we have the opportunity for us to engage in my last few minutes a little bit more. What questions do you have? While I show you this. Okay, what is a good next step? I mean, I think that what I just said to you is a perfect next step. It is to take what you have learned, and you're going to be talking about this much more later on. Look at this. Now, here we go. Here's what I wanted to show you. This is what you're going to do. You're going to ask questions. You're going to ask stakeholders. Then you're going to set goals for yourself. Now, any good coach will tell you, you can't just set goals and not do anything. You have to hold yourself accountable. You're putting DEI in your agenda, right? You're saying, you know, whatever we're doing, whether it's recruiting, whether it's pipeline work, whether it's thinking about professional development and how we support our talent pipeline, even how we engage with our outside counsel, how are we measuring that, right? You're talking about data later. I want you to actualize it for yourselves. How are you getting support? The great thing that you have from outside vendors is they want to help you because they want to keep your business. Ask them for help, right? You've got tons of DEI professionals who are internal in law firms who can provide you with best practices and resources that they access all the time so that you're not in this alone, okay? And I'm going to remind you of a couple of things. My favorite thing is this. You are the I in both DEI because you're advancing inclusion, and you're the individual that's going to make an impact. I don't want you to think it's nothing you can do. It's not them, it's you. And individual influence for institutional and industry DEI impact. Individual influence, that's you, for institutional and industry-wide DEI impact. The answer is you. Collectively, we come together and we shift the game. So I hope that we will stay connected with each other. I know that our time is done. I'm sorry it went too quickly. It always does. I want to give you tons of information. Don't think that this is the last time we were going to interact and engage with each other. I wish you wonderful and impactful conversation. I'm going to look at this. What are the strategies that best work to engage those who have never experienced racism? First of all, we've all experienced racism. We're in a society which is impacted by racism. So whether or not you are one of the, what you would think of as like an individual, we are all impacted by racism and the system of it. And so thinking about that way versus individually can help us to understand that we are all a part of the answer. And education is where you should start with. If you have not done any education institutionally, it's hard to have conversation if you're not speaking the same language. Now, with that, unfortunately, my time is up. I want to say, Sharifa, I'm sending it back to you. I look forward to all of you connected with me. Your other homework is to connect with me on LinkedIn. Have a wonderful rest of your day with fruitful conversation around DEI. Take it away, Sharifa.
Thanks, Paula. On behalf of our chapter, I would like to extend a special thank you to you. Thanks for joining us all the way from sunny Jamaica. Today's objective is to offer the audience practical ways to move the DEI needle within their organizations. And with all of the eyes that you have provided us today, you certainly have given us some takeaways. Your insights have certainly provided keys for many to start the disruptions necessary to impact their company's DEI. Thank you for being here and speaking with us today, Paula.